I've been out to my local woodland again in the last couple of weeks, and I've been shooting around the sort of familiar areas I've been going to for the past sort of month. But this time I sort of took a different approach. Now, I've been typically shooting with either black and white or with an Ektar, which is a saturated colour negative film. But I'm really sort of leaning towards that subtle colour, that sort of gentle colour. And that's the sort of colour I'm getting from the likes of the Kodak Portra 400 in particular. Now, one of my inspirations for woodland photography, and has been for many, many years, is probably one of the first proponents of colour woodland photography, and that's Ektar Portra. And this is one of his books, The Realm of Nature. Now, this is one of my favourite books. It's a very old work, relatively, for colour and photography around woodlands, because it really was a pioneer. You're talking about going back to the 1940s and 50s when everybody was shooting black and white. Now, one thing I like about this work is it's understated, it's subtle, it's quiet. It doesn't shout at you, as many photographers tend to push the colours these days. You know, you lean on those sliders, and even film photographers using Velvia, and even Ektar, such as myself, they are exaggerated films. They do tend to be sort of preternaturally colourful and vibrant. So I thought I'd go out with my large format camera and shoot in a different style. Now, I did enjoy the trip. It was a little bit frustrating at times, but what made it special, I think, was that choice of film. So have a quick look at the video and we'll come back at the end and I'll show you the print I made and also talk a little bit about the camera and the settings. Now, continuing on the woodland theme, which I no doubt have mentioned on a previous vlog or two, I'm back down the forest. It's just stopped raining. It's been horrible this morning. But I like this light now because it's soft and subtle. I'm lugging the large format again. I brought my bigger backpack this time. Bit more gear in there. I've also brought the drone because the poor little blight has not been out for a fly for about 5 or 6 months. So going to exercise the eyes, the brain, and the flying control fingers again. Now, I'm sure, as I've mentioned before, one of the reasons I am concentrating on local landscapes, which are within 5-10 minutes of me, is to actually improve my photography, because when you go to the iconic locations, it's relatively easy to get a decent shot, even if the weather's not perfect, because all the elements are in the right place. But here, it's very tricky. Woodland, I would say, is the hardest type of landscape photography because of the sheer confusion, the amount of intersections and crossing lines. It's very difficult to make a strong composition. So this is pushing myself, and large format's pushing myself even further because of the limitations. Now, I've come out today primarily to shoot Portra. Now, Portra is a muted, much less saturated colour negative film, unlike Ektar. It's faster as well. But if I'm absolutely honest, I think I prefer my Portra shots overall. In the past, they're the ones which have leapt out at me. I like Ektar, it looks very, very vivid and it's getting close to a slide film, but I'm starting to lean towards the more subtle colours. Okay, after my brief navigation around the perimeter of the little lake here, it's become quite apparent to me that the action, so to speak, is over on the other side where I first started. There's more colour, there are better compositions, the light is more striking, it's a little bit bland over here, and all I have is long shots to, let me just duck under this tree, all I have is long shots to what remaining colour there is on the far bank. That's no good. Sticking a long lens on and hoping to isolate something because there's no real composition. It's not the way I want to go. Right, I have come up with a composition which I'm really pleased with. It's just back a little bit from where I was complaining that there were no compositions. I've set my 4x5 Intrepid up and I'm using a gentle wide angle lens. Now this lens is quite interesting because it is about 85 years old. It's an old Goerz Dagor. I was gifted it a couple of years ago. It's had a few problems now. It's been off to a couple of repairers and it's been fixed now. I believe it's successfully fixed the iris, which wasn't always opening when I was firing the shutter. So I've got accurate shutter speeds. It's a very simple, very small, lightweight lens. No coating. It's going to be soft because they haven't got all that sharpness. You've got this modern technology nowadays. Anyway, about the composition. I have set myself up with a shot across to the far side of this little lake. And I've taken it in a portrait orientation. Now, I have some foreground with these sort of broken trees, ferns, rushes, etc. And I also have the distant trees going up into the sky, so I can't use really much tilt. There's a tiny bit of tilt there. I may have actually blurred the top of the trees, so I'll only find out when I get it developed. Now, what I've tried to do is I've tried to exclude trees which are cutting into the frame, dark trees. I want to accentuate the beautiful light tree over there and also some of this foreground detail. So I have made an exposure at 1 second on Portra 400 biased towards the foreground down here. Now the sky, sorry not the sky, the top of the frame is a lot lighter. Portra 400 is vastly able to handle that level of contrast. It's an amazing film. Now with the cost of Portra 400 being around about £7 a sheet at the moment, I didn't want to shoot doubles. Now shooting doubles is normal practice. You shoot one sheet, you turn the film holder over, you shoot the second one. That's going to be £14 before developing. This is very close to where I live. I can come back here again tomorrow if I want to. And I also found with the composition the trees were sort of encroaching slightly at the side and I've had to sort of hopefully exclude enough of them. But I figured it would actually work as a vertical panoramic. So I've put the 6x12 Horseman back on and I've taken a very tall shot as well, excluding a lot more of the extraneous detail at the side of the frame. So a couple of shots with that, and I've done that at 1 second and at 2 seconds. The 2 seconds will give me yet more shadow detail. Again, I'm not totally certain I've got everything sharp on this one. It's a bit of a fingers crossed, but I really like it. Well, it remains to be seen if, sorry, I'm just checking I've not left anything behind. It remains to be seen if that comes out okay in terms of sharpness. It was a bit of a compromise between foreground and the top trees on the other side of the bank. I don't mind a bit of softness, to be honest, in the distance. That's how things tend to work anyway. I mean, you don't see that well at long distances. We haven't got the eyes of a hawk. But I liked it because of the subtlety. There was plenty of detail going on in there, but it's also quite a clean composition. Now, I would like one more. I'm not looking for a clutch of shots today. I want one more from here. Something with the really golden autumnal leaves in, I think. Not quite sure whether I want to do a detail shot with just a few or a bigger shot. We'll wait and see. Now, it's become apparent immediately, now I'm back on the side of the lake with the attractive trees, that it's far too bright. The sun has cleared the clouds after that rain has passed over, and that's making it far too harsh to shoot what I want to shoot. So I may need to get somewhere which is under a small canopy of trees, although there aren't that many here. But I do need to exclude that bright sun. It's just distracting, and it's not really the mood I'm trying to create. Now you see this sort of thing here with the beautiful backlit leaves. Now this is one of those things my eye is drawn to immediately, with the golden leaves and some of the orangey sort of green contrasts. But the problem is there's a big dead tree sat, let me just show you, sat behind them, smack bang there. Now that means I'm going to have to start considering other angles, but as soon as I point my camera up, far too bright. Right, I am going to have to work this area, and that means putting the camera bag down, putting the tripod down, basically unburdening myself. I'm going to get my little iPhone out with the preview app I've shown you on many previous trips, and I'm just going to work this very small area because there is something here. I can feel it, and I'm going to work at it. If it takes me an hour, it takes me an hour. Okay, so that didn't go as planned. It was just too harsh, far too harsh, and getting brighter all the time. There is zero cloud cover now in front of that sun, and even the sort of stuff on the forest floor, the leaves, which may have worked when it was overcast earlier, far too harsh. It's just going to distract you. You're not going to get any real balance in that composition with all that light coming through. So I'm just going to have a little look around the edge of the woods here, just to see if I can find something else. Well, I am actually going to call it quits there. I have tried all manner of composition, including many vertical panoramics to match the first one, and I haven't got anything which I deem worthy of breaking out the camera for and expending film, effort, development time for something which is mediocre. So thanks for coming along on this short trip with me, and I'll see you again soon. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. It was a very pleasant 2 or 3 hours, and I was a little bit frustrated at first that I didn't get the extra shot I'd hoped for with some of the bright, vibrant colours. But when I got home and processed the single image I took, and particularly the vertical panoramic, I was very, very pleased indeed. The 5x4 shot, the original shot, was a little bit too wide. I was including too many details which just didn't need to be there. In the vertical panoramic, I just have that tree coming in on the left, the white tree, and the interest is focused on that tree, and the foliage at the top and bottom really complement that. It actually works very well, I think. Now, that was all courtesy, obviously, of my 6x12 back. Yes, you could have cropped the original image down, that's absolutely true. But what this gives me is the option to take additional frames in case one was slightly out of focus. Now, I did refocus for the 6x12 shots because I felt, as I mentioned on the video, that I may have excluded some sharpness at the top by tilting. So this is a little bit sharper on this one because I backed off on that tilt. Now, the camera, as I said, was the Intrepid 4x5, and I've got it mounted with this very old 85-year-old Goerz Dagor lens, the 10cm, so about 30mm wide angle. No coatings, very, very simple, but it's a bit of a cult lens, a bit of a classic. Now, that has resulted in me being able to make a print. Now, I've made the print on A2 matte paper. Now, this is quite straightforward. It's very cheap paper, actually. It's just an Epson, I think it's a bright white or matte. I can't remember the name of it. I'll put it up in the credits. Now, what I like about this image is it is very, very soft and gentle. There are no harsh contrasts in there, which isn't surprising given the film and the lens. And it's also got a sort of watercolour look to it. It's more of a painting to me. It's very, very soft considering the light was really harsh at the time. It was very, very bright. I've got no sort of inky black shadows and I've got no burnt out highlights. It's all really muted, and I love the greens and yellows. It took very little manipulation as well. Scanned it on my Epson V700, and I'm absolutely overjoyed with that type of look. So that's something I'm going to be pursuing a little bit more in the future and on other videos. In fact, I've got a trip planned tomorrow where we're going to be going to the Lake District, myself and Robin, and I am going to be shooting with Portra 400, but I may do something a bit different on that, which is to be seen on that video, hopefully. So anyway, I do hope you enjoyed this little discussion, a bit of a ramble of mine about the sort of direction I'm thinking of going in with the Woodland and the sort of muted and gentle look. And yes, hopefully I will see you again on the next trip. Thanks for watching.